All right. So everybody, thanks so much for listening to us. If you are listening to us on YouTube, if you're listening to us on one of the podcasting sites, Apple, Spotify, and the list goes on and on for that, we appreciate that. Also, if you're listening to us on the radio, we thank you so much for listening. And if you are, like I said, listening to us on the podcast or the YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share. We have a really incredible woman on here to talk about a real heartfelt story, but something that happened in Rhode Island, where I'm originally from, in the first day of August. And this is Miya Brophy-Baermann, and she's going to be talking about her daughter Maya, her story. We're going to be celebrating her life story and also talking, obviously, about what happened. And also, there's been a scholarship fund that is slowly getting started up for her in her memory. So I know this is hard, Michelle. I really appreciate your time and coming on and doing this with me. It really means a lot, seriously.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Okay. So, Michelle, can we first talk about, and I want you to get into the story about Maya in general. Can you just talk about her growing up and, how she was, as a child, and then obviously growing into a young woman?
Sure. And let's see, I haven't cried once today. It's the first day, and so I'm going to try to do this without crying. But it's the first day I haven't cried, which is good, right?
Yeah.
Maya, from the beginning, was very precocious and very active and very smart. She loved to do everything her older brother did. So she was into baseball from a young age. And actually ended up coming, when we moved to Rhode Island when she was 9, she joined the Pawtucket Slaterettes, and she played for several years till she got injured. But she was just a great kid. And we did move here from Wisconsin in 2006. I took a job at Rhode Island College, and it was a tough move, but she acclimated quite well, made lots of friends, and was, again, active in sports, active in school. When she went into high school, she ended up doing debate. She played soccer a little bit, did cross country. That's when she got injured. Made a lot of friends. Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but just, she was lovely. And the thing that I always think about is we both wanted a son and a daughter. That was kind of what we always wanted, my husband and I. And we had the boy first, Bellamy, our son. And then 5.5 years later, when we had Maya, the first thing I thought when I was in the hospital having her is I thought she was a boy. Because I saw her, and I said, hey, it's a boy. And I was a little disappointed, just a little bit, because it wasn't a girl. But then I realized it was her umbilical cord that I thought made me think she was a boy. And when we realized she was a girl, we were just extra ecstatic. And
yeah,
it's really hard to have lost my daughter, our daughter.
Reading about Maya, obviously I didn't know her, but reading about her, she seemed like she'd done amazing things throughout her college career. Obviously, she had just finished her master's. Working at a nursing home is an extremely tough job in itself, dealing with people that are lonely, people that have dementia, people that have all different medical issues. So she must have been like a saint to deal with that. That's a really tough job. But not only that, going to school to be a speech pathologist. What made her want to go into these fields that, it seems like she was really wanted to help people in general,
Yeah.
whether they were disabled or not disabled?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the things, and when I think about Maya, I think about how empathetic and kind and loving she was. And she was always wanting to help people. And that's one of the things that we knew it about her. We always thought, gosh, you're always helping other people, like, all the time. What about yourself? But we learned that too when people came to the viewing and they told us stories that we never heard about, of how they helped this person in high school or in middle school, how she had done that. But I think her grandfather, my husband's dad, died when she was just a newborn of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And then her grandmother died several years later of another kind of degenerative disease. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. So Maya started to become interested in the brain and in neurology, and I think she thought about pursuing neuroscience for a while. But she transferred. She was going to Skidmore, where they had a neuroscience degree, and she's always very frugal and wanted to save money. And she realized it was just so much money to go there. So when she didn't get a financial aid package after her first year, she decided to go to URI. And she took a little bit of time and went to Rick for a semester until she could get into URI. She was not quite sure what she wanted to do because URI at the time didn't have a neuroscience major. And she talked to a family friend she talked to a daughter of a family friend who is an SLP, a speech language pathologist, and learned all about that. They sat down for an hour or so and talked about it. And she said, I think I'll look into that. And URI had the program. She joined it and she loved it. And she did incredibly well, got into Northeastern after she finished that program, did that 2-year program, was doing her clinical work. She worked with children in the clinic. She worked in the schools in Taunton. Then her very favorite clinical experience was just in this last spring at Braintree Rehabilitation Center in Braintree, Mass, because there she was working with people with strokes, people who had traumatic brain injury. And that was her real passion, was the brain and memory. And her thesis, she did do a thesis, which, not most of the students don't choose to do a thesis, but she wanted to do that. And it was on memory. And so she went into a field where she could help people. She got that job. She took a couple months off after she graduated, got that job. I'd only been there for 3 weeks. And I think already had such an impact while there in her short time.
Can you go back to that night and what happened? Did she speak to you earlier on in the day or earlier on in the night? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. I think, one of the things I would say about Maya, she had been offered a job in New Hampshire and about 3 hours away. So we all drove up one weekend in mid to late June and took a look around, and she was going to take that job. A little bit nervous about being so, it's not that far away, but far away from family and friends. And then she had this opportunity in North Providence. And so when she got that offer, it was a no-brainer. She could live at home for another year. She was actually going to contribute. She hadn't been paying for rent or anything up until this point, but my husband lost his job and was out of a job for 13 months. And, Maya was like, I'm going to be making good money, and so I'm going to contribute. And we said, no, not that much. So we came up with an amount which was going to be very helpful. And we were excited about that. And she was excited to be here for one more year. During COVID, as you can imagine, we were all 3 at home. So except for when she was doing her clinical placement in Mass, we were home together all the time. So if it's even possible, we became closer. And it's amazing to think about how over that time period, we didn't fight. We didn't get on each other's nerves. And I think it's just the maturity and just where we were at, right? But so she turned 24 on July 23rd. And that night she didn't have a chance to get out till really late. And she had planned on going out earlier with some friends. And then that Sunday, this was the 25th, was her last shift. She was doing her last shift at Providence Coal Fire Pizza in North Kingston. She worked a couple different jobs. So we went in and she served us, which was really, really great. She was a very great server. And then it was a week later. Well, it was a Saturday. That Saturday, she had taken off from her other job. She was going to continue working at Black Sheep, which is in Providence, just on Saturday nights. She made good tips and she helped out because they were short-staffed with COVID. So that Saturday she had taken off so that we could all go, the three of us could go to Manchester, New Hampshire, and meet her brother, Bellamy, and his wife, Emma. They live in Portland, Maine, and that was a pretty good location to meet. And Bellamy is really into Frank Lloyd Wright. So we were going to see these two Frank Lloyd Wright houses that the Career Museum has. And so we were together in the car. We were together at the museum. We did the tour. I remember her sitting next to me on the little bus that we went over on to the museum on, to the houses on. And I just remember her to my left, and I was rubbing the hole in her jeans, like rubbing her knee through the hole in the jeans. We were just like that. We touched a lot. Yeah. And then after we had a later dinner than we expected, it took longer. Then the kids, Bellamy and Emma, gave Maya her birthday presents because they hadn't, seen her the week before. Mm-hmm. And I'd say we got home around maybe 10. I could be wrong. And she was supposed to be going out with the friend that she was supposed to go out the week before, but that kind of fell through. So she had gotten all dressed up, and then she had gotten into her pajamas, and then she got another call from some different friends. So she got dressed, and she must have left around 11. Of course, we didn't love it that she was going out so late, but she's done it plenty of times, and she usually works late, and she was closing and cleaning up late. And it was kind of her chance to do a little bit more birthday celebrating, I think. So she went out. As always, Brian, my husband, said, "Be safe," and she always said, "I will." And that was the last we saw her. I mean, of course, we said, "I love you." We always said, "I love you." And then usually Brian and I would wake up in the morning and like 3 or 4, and we'd leave her bedroom light on, check. We didn't wake up that morning. We didn't wake up. Or we would have seen that she wasn't home. But at 7, that's when the Providence Police came.
Okay. So they came to your house then. There was no call or anything from anybody?
No.
Like a friend or something?
A friend of Maya's did try to contact us from the hospital, but my sound was off and she didn't know my home number. So
yeah.
No.
When she had got shot, was it like, where was it? Was there any chance of survival, or was it like, do you know any of that?
I don't really know all of the details, in part because I don't think we were prepared and are still trying to get to that place.
Right, of course.
I don't think she wasn't alive very long. I don't think she could have made it. I think my sense is that she was already dead when they got her to the hospital. It was about a half an hour between, I think, when they arrived or when the 911 call went in and when they pronounced her. So, in retrospect, I wish I could have gotten to the hospital to maybe at least see her and touch her while she, but we didn't.
Right.
And we still don't know exactly what happened. It was a drive-by. She was out talking to a friend,
right,
and ready to get into her car.
Did the friend that was there speak to you about any kind of other details of anything that went on, or?
Well, we have spoken to the friend, and the details that I know that he recalls is that a car was kind of coming down. That's Olney, I guess.
Yeah.
This happened right near across from the University Heights apartments, and all of a sudden it just came closer
to the curb.
He said, to where they were, like it came out of their lane, and all he remembers is hearing it, seeing smoke and light, and he thought he had been shot, evidently, but then he realized, and he carried Maya into the lobby of the apartments across the street didn't know what was going on. But that's as much information as I'm ready to have at this point, because
that's fair. Yeah, no, it's fair. So we'll move on from that. I do want to talk about, there is a GoFundMe that's up, and for people that do want to donate or actually see and hear more about the story, like I said, in the description box we will put the news and the newspaper story about that. But if you go to gofundme.com, it's called Miyas Voice, MIYAS, and then there's a dash VOICE. You can just even Google it and just Google her name, and you can look at the GoFundMe if you want to donate to help out as far as that goes. And I will put that in the description box also. And again, for people that are listening, this is Miya Brophy-Baermann, and she is talking about Maya's story, who was brutally taken from us on August 1st. So, Michelle, I want to talk about this. Obviously, Rhode Island is a small state. You've been here for quite a while, since 2006, you said.
Mm-hmm.
And through that time, I'm sure you've met a lot of people. We know Maya had tons of friends and met a lot of people in general. How has the state really come together after hearing this story? And it's really a big story all over the state when it happened. How has the state came together and helped you and kind of, keep Maya's memory as, going, even though she's, gone?
I think it started, well, first of all, I have to commend the Providence Police for the work that they've done. And just even from when they first got here and the approach that they took. And there's also, along with the Providence Police, there's a liaison that worked with us to kind of help us through that first day when you can't think and you have to call her brother, my parents. But I think my days are a little blurry, but I think it was on maybe the second day that one of my colleagues, Robin, had said, you should set up a GoFundMe page. And I didn't know why. I thought, well, we're not going to need that for the hospital or funeral expenses. And so I didn't do anything. And then she said the next day, I think you should do that. Because what if you can come up with a way to create a legacy? And I hadn't even thought about that. And I'm so grateful to her for doing that, because when I couldn't sleep, which was, we couldn't really sleep the first couple of nights, the idea struck, what we wanted to do. And because she's a speech language pathologist and it's all about the voice, of course, we wanted to call it Maya's Voice. And one of the concerns Maya had in grad school, she recognized that that profession, not just that profession, a lot of medical professions, but that profession is very, very homogenous. It's mostly, especially in speech language pathology, mostly white women. Audiology has more males, but again, mostly white and female. And so she was very interested in diversity and equity and inclusion. It's just something she was always passionate about. Yeah. So I have to say, when I was down in the basement digging through bins and bins of her artwork and her papers and her notebooks, I just thought, can we do something? Is there something that can be done, a scholarship that might encourage students who wouldn't normally think about going into the field of communicative disorders to do that? And so that's kind of what got us started down this path. We haven't, right at this point, we haven't finalized the plan. What I would love to do is create my own foundation, kind of like the Potts did with the Maddie Potts Foundation, but that is a huge endeavor. It takes a lot of time and energy and money that, we don't really have at this point. So we're probably, we may go through the Rhode Island Foundation and establish scholarships for students who are going to URI or Rhode Island College to study communicative disorders or speech language and hearing sciences. so that's kind of where we're at. And we hope to have details, I'd like to think by the end of October, about how this will work. But we would just like to see, you know, a more culturally competent, more diverse set of students going into the field, and spreading, you know, sharing their own voices and spreading Miya's vision.
Last two questions, Michelle. Can you tell people what you hope they get from hearing this interview about Miya?
Well, I think in a world where it seems like there's just so much bad news and polarization and nobody trusts anyone, Miya was somebody who was a really just an amazing and good person. And she loved her family and she loved her friends and she loved people and she wanted to do things to make the world better. I mean, people say this all the time, but that's really who she was. Mm-hmm. And so I hope that they see that or hear that those people are out there and they're trying to make the world better. And it's just tragic that this could happen. But I also, you know, this is really interesting to me at the viewing. A man from her nursing home actually came. She had only met with him 3 times. He had had a stroke. And the people who worked there, her supervisor and another person at the nursing home, actually wheeled him in, and it was a wheelchair, but then he wanted to stand up and come over and talk to us. And he talked to us. He gave us a letter that explained his, you know, how he had worked with Miya and how she really knew that he just needed to talk. And as he left, he told my son and my daughter-in-law it was worth having this stroke.
Wow.
And I still just thinking about it, how powerful that was, because Miya was just so compassionate and so patient. And she, as her thesis advisor told us when we met with her last week, in the profession, you have those people who are technically really, really good, and you have those people who are super good with their people skills. And then you have, you know, those people who can do both. And of course, if you have that combination, that is the very best combination. And Miya had both, you know, an amazing clinician, if you will, and also incredible people skills. And that's something I'd want people to remember, I guess. Just who knows what she might have done in this world.
So as we end, Michelle, can you tell people where they can help out for the scholarship, or they can find more information on, you know, you or Miya's journey in general?
Sure. Right now, we're in the process of working on getting a website put together, so that's not available at this time. And we have a lot of people who've been helping us, volunteering to do things. Miya worked, again, at several restaurants in Providence and in North Kingston, and there's already been a small fundraiser where someone volunteered to make T-shirts, and they sold T-shirts, and we've been able to save some or raise money from that. I'm actually wearing one of the T-shirts. I don't know if you can see it. It's got a teddy bear and it says Miyas Voice. And we're going to be doing there's going to be another event at Black Sheep downtown where we'll be selling more T-shirts on the 25th. Altogether, we've raised almost over $64,000 in 6 weeks.
Wow, that's pretty good, yeah.
Most of it through GoFundMe, but also through the T-shirts. And I've just been so amazed by the numbers. Over almost 650 people have donated on GoFundMe. You know, that doesn't include the people who bought T-shirts and donated in that way. So the website's not available. The GoFundMe page is there, but there are other ways people can donate. And if they want, they could email me at it's Miyas Voice, MIYASVOICE @gmail.com if they wanted to know more about how they could contribute. Most people are, you know, the majority of people give small amounts, but every dollar helps. And the more we're able to raise, the more that we we can do in the community and with students. So I think that's kind of where we're at this point. And I hope we can. My goal would be on her birthday next July 23rd, which I believe is a Saturday, would be to have a celebration of her life and hopefully some sort of fundraiser where we can at least maybe do something annually to benefit Miya's Voice.
Well, Michelle, thanks so much for your time. Again, for people that are listening, definitely if you can throw a couple of bucks to the fundraiser, please do that. It'll go to a worthy cause, of course. And you can find that on, again, it's Gofundme, and then just look up Miya's Voice. It's Miyas, and then Voice, Voice. So you can just check it out on there. And I will put all this stuff in the description box. That was Michelle Brophy-Baermann again, and she was talking about her daughter Miya that lost her life through gun violence on August 1st. So Michelle, thanks so much for your time, and I really appreciate you telling this story. I know it's hard for you, and it really means a lot that you came on here and really did that. So thanks again for that.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it. My husband and my family, of course, all do. Thank you.